Right, the next round at a David Moyes striker target knockout tournament that I've somehow put together is Tammy Abraham versus Youssef En-Nesyri, both relatively highly rated. We're taking Tammy's 1920 stats because he hasn't really played a lot this season, so I don't think it's fair for me to compare to Youssef En-Nesyri, who's had a really, really good season with Sevilla. Interesting how they both match up. Like in terms of goals, both have got 15 goals on their relative campaigns. Tammy's got 3 more assists than Youssef. So on the outset, you feel that maybe Tammy's the more creative or the player that's going to influence things a lot more. And there's elements of that are true, but then there's a lot to say that the En-Nesyri's finishing stats are a lot higher. So I'm going to go through it. Same criteria as last time. Finishing, so shots on target, and XG as well, which is a horrible thing. But we're going to put it in here just to try and understand how good this guy is. Creativity, which can be labelled as dribbles, positional variability, and key passes. And then finally, ball retention, anything to do with dispossessions or bad touches. So I've got the notebook out. Let's get through things. Now, in terms of the stats for both of them, Tammy Abraham has more shots per 90 on target than Youssef En-Nesyri, which is impressive. But you tend to think that that means that he's scoring a lot more. He's getting more shots in general on the goal across the 90 minutes than En-Nesyri. But En-Nesyri, in terms of the goal return, and this was the key thing last time in terms of Ivan Toney, the goal return from the shots on target that he's showcasing is 0.27 per 90. For any generic shot on target, which is compared to, I think it's 0.2 for Tammy Abraham, but more significantly, 0.68 goals for every shot on target compared to Tammy Abraham's, I think it's 0.43. So that differential shows you that actually he's a lot more clinical than Tammy is when he's getting in on goal. And you think that, and that says a lot when you've got both strikers have got the same amount of goals in relative campaigns. It just shows that when in the series in on goal, that he's more likely to score. But it's more reflective on the XG of both players. So Tammy Abraham's XG for that season was 0.9 for the shots that he got on target. Youssef En-Nesyri's was 5.1 plus over what he should have got. And this season, and he scored a lot more goals in those situations. So not only is En-Nesyri a player that is more clinical when he's getting in on goal, he's getting goals that he shouldn't really be getting. And you look at Tammy Abraham, relatively speaking, in the Chelsea side that worked into his strengths, where Lampard gave him a lot of game time. It says more about productivity from En-Nesyri's side than it does about Tammy, which again is harsh on him because I do rate Tammy Abraham as a player. Let's go to the next criteria when we're going to talk a little bit. Actually, before I get on to the next criteria, possibly the biggest mark in all of this, the amount of chances taken or the amount of chances missed even by both strikers. En-Nesyri this season has missed 6 big chances. Tammy Abraham, when he scored 15 goals that season, missed 22. And that just demonstrates what I'm talking about, XG. Even he's taking the chances that he should take, but he's also missing a hell of a lot. And for West Ham, you need a player that's clinical, that we're not going to get as much possession as Chelsea had in that season, possibly not even working to his strengths as much. So you need a player that when he gets the ball or gets a chance in the box, he's going to take it. So it's got to be En-Nesyri for that round. The second thing we want to talk about is creativity. And again, it's interesting how Tammy just edges it in terms of overall play. So in terms of key passes, 0.6 to 0.5. Generally speaking, in terms of dribbles, 0.5 to 0.4 for Tammy. So Tammy, in that sense, seems the more creative player. Then you've got to go and look at the positioning of both players. Both more than happy to go and pick the ball up in deep areas, try and stretch the play. And you wouldn't really associate it because when you watch both of them play and the type of goals that they do score, they're a lot more direct down the middle, using their decent striker movement in the box as well. So a little bit surprising from that. I was surprised with the dribble stats for Tammy Abraham. He's better in terms of ball carries that season. Ball carries into the box, successful dribbles. I think he's 20% higher than En-Nesyri, which is quite significant. So you can't write off Tammy Abraham just because En-Nesyri is the more clinical of the players. He actually is creating more. He's making more movements. That dynamism that West Ham need, particularly with the team that we've got and the way that David Moyes wants us to play, could be something that we utilise, and possibly why West Ham are keeping an eye on him, because he has got that element to his game, and he has reflected that, of course, in the 3 assists that he's got for Chelsea that season. But my biggie, my big one, my clincher for me, it's even, right? So whatever comes out on ball retention is the winner. So this is quite significant, and it doesn't always seem this significant because it's always per 90 stats. But I will say this. En-Nesyri, in terms of the amount of times he's dispossessed per 90, is 0.6. Tammy Abraham dispossessed 1.2, which again He's losing the ball less than half the time than Tammy is. I mean, that could be down to dribbling, so you can't necessarily say that. And Tammy has been more successful and probably is a little bit more dynamic. So maybe that fits into the stat, but he's having less poor touches as well. En-Nesyri 1.7 compared to Tammy's 2.2. So En-Nesyri is more economical with possession. He's keeping the ball better. He's got a better touch, possibly better technically. And there could be potential there for him to be a hold-up player for West Ham. And this is kind of what I always harp on about. Can we get a player that's going to hold the play up long enough for West Ham to progress forward? And on that basis, En-Nesyri would be the outlier. Then there's also the sort of reverse argument that you need someone to stretch the play, particularly if West Ham have possession. And there could be an argument that Tammy's the better for that. So it's a real tough one to try and pick between the two, in my opinion. And I think a lot is not really said about what you see of both players. I thought En-Nesyri was a better dribbler than Tammy Abraham, if I'm honest, more creative. The aerial duels is a bit suspect, depending on what stats you believe. I think, actually, I believe the idea that En-Nesyri has been more successful aerially than Tammy. So there are options there. I think it's tough, isn't it? I'm going to go En-Nesyri on this one. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. But I prefer a player that's able to take his chances when he gets it. The XG thing swings it for me. The sort of the least amount of chances missed as well when he's expected to take them is so important. And Tammy, even though he was getting goals last season, again, really and truthfully, for West Ham, that would be a frustrating thing to see because we're not going to create that many chances in games, particularly in those big games. You need someone like an En-Nesyri. You got to give credit to Tammy, generally decent in terms of overall play, but I feel that if you've got to have Youssef En-Nesyri in there, better economically, better ball retention, more clinical, and there is a possibility of him adapting to this side a little bit more effectively than Tammy Abraham, if that's fair to say. It doesn't. Again, the stats don't really tell the full story. He transitioned from a winger to a striker, so he can play in those wide areas. Although the stats aren't saying he's doing it as effectively, he can do it, and he's getting goals. So I think there's more facets to En-Nesyri's play than Tammy. If Tammy did turn up at West Ham for whatever reason, I'd be more than happy to have him because I do think he would be an asset. And I think he's got enough in his overall play that West Ham can use, if that's fair to say. But the winner is Youssef En-Nesyri. So the final is Ivan Toney versus Youssef En-Nesyri. Who should Moyes go for as his main striking option? And of course, we'll return for that video, letting you know the differences in the stats and possibly even trying to break it up and compare it a little bit more closely to Mickey, because I think that's where we're going to get the final decision. Let me know in the comment section, do you agree with me? Is it En-Nesyri? Is it Tammy Abraham for you? No problem if you do disagree with me. I'd rather you did that than just go along with it. And until next time, everybody, take care.